Hi there, I'm Nathan Agan. Welcome to the Working Actors Journey Rehearsal Room. We started this project in June 2020. It came out of what we could do with all the time during the pandemic. And we found that having the time to deeply explore just one scene over a month has really excited everybody involved. And now, this series, we're going to be focusing on Act One, Scene Two of Hamlet. If you're just joining us, you can go back and check out Act One, Scene One. Even in such a short scene, there's so much unpacked and so much explored and a lot of great discussion there. But this month, we're going to meet a lot more characters and get deeper into the play. For those familiar with John Barton's Playing Shakespeare series, I kind of see this as a springboard, an homage off of that. We, unlike them, are totally unscripted, and it's a wonderful way to see the creative process in real time. For those who are new here, what you're going to see through the weeks is not meant to be finished or final. It's just a continued work in progress. This is, whatever we're seeing is just the next step. As I've said in other sessions, once the actors and the director got it up on their feet, it would probably change even more. But this is, allowing us to really focus on the text here and understand what's going on in the play. The rehearsal room is an opportunity for artists of different generations and backgrounds to collaborate, learn from one another, and continue the lineage of honing the craft by actually doing it. And to get a little philosophical, I think this continues the great theatrical history of apprenticeship, where newer and younger artists, whether they're in the scene reading or observing, get to see up close how professionals work after 30 plus years. Questions to ask, how to explore, how to communicate, how to take direction. And what I've loved is it's never been a top-down structure. Great ideas and questions come from all directions. Everybody's been so welcoming of that dynamic. And yeah, it's just wonderful to see everybody's on a level playing field, which has been wonderful. As you will probably note, and you'll certainly see in any of our other sessions, we can explore different casting, being a little more conscious to gender, age, or race than theaters sometimes can be because we are focused on the text. So whether somebody, quote unquote, is not right for a role doesn't really matter here. They can read it, they can have the experience of reading it and learning from that. And we can also, as evidenced by this group, bring artists together from all over the place, sometimes people that haven't worked together for 20 years because of either geography or other time commitments. So that's a really exciting part of this rehearsal process. So we will continue posting these weekly sessions on YouTube for free for everybody to enjoy. So if you're watching it there, be sure to subscribe to our channel, click for notifications. You can support the project via Patreon and get early access to some of the sessions and a few other bonuses for starting at just $5 a month. And a quick thank you to some of our patrons, Joan, Michelle, Jim, Magdalene, Ivar, Claudia, Cliff, and Jeff. Thank you very much for your support, keeping the administrative lights on. And that is it from me. You've heard enough from me already. I will turn it over to Annie and Randy, and maybe we can do a quick round of introductions. I know we have a lot to get to of the artists, and that'll be that. So, Annie and Randy, take it away.
Okay, I'm going to be very brief because I think that there's enough information about me on the Working Actors Journey website. But I'm Anne Occhiogrosso. I'll be guiding the discussion and the exploration of this work on Hamlet. I'm one of the co-founders of the American Players Theater and have spent the last 50 years of my life teaching, directing, acting, coaching. And I think that's really all you need to know about me. So I'll pass it on to Randy.
I'm Randall Kim, and I'm just an old Shakespearean actor. That's it. And I'm looking forward to this adventure in combing through a text to see what clues there are in the performance of this scene. And that's it.
Great.
Welcome.
Great. Lee, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm Lee Ernst, and I was an original company member with APT and spent many good years there with Randy and Annie. And yeah, I'm an actor.
Excellent. Benjamin.
I'm Benjamin Reigel. I am an original child of American Players Theater. My parents are on this call right now, Lee Ernst and Sandy Ernst, and my sort of foster parents and mentors. Some of them are also on this call right now. So I was a child put on stage at APT at 5, in 1982, and that's been my career ever since. I'm also an actor, and I teach at the Colorado Mesa University.
Excellent. All right, let's round out the family. Sandy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sandy Ernst. I was Randy and Annie's one and only directing apprentice starting in 1981. I'm still doing that, and I teach at the University of Delaware, and I'm still learning from Randy and Annie.
Wonderful, wonderful. Larry, please.
Hi, Larry Peterson. I'm an actor, and I have a decades-long love of classical literature, especially Shakespeare. The depth of character and feeling and emotion just by the words themselves, I think, is unmatched in any other genre of theater. And I've studied with Annie for a long time.
Excellent, wonderful. Glad you could be back here, Larry. Elizabeth or Liz? Yep. Oh, you're muted though, Liz.
That's not good to be muted, is it? No, I'm Elizabeth Swain. I'm in New York, which I don't know how I haven't. No, I'm not in New York anymore. I'm in LA. I'm an actor, director, and teacher, and I have been in Hamlet 3 times, twice as Ophelia and once as the ghost, as we talked about last week in the LA Women's Shakespeare. And I've directed it 3 times, once in New York, once upstate New York, and once here at the Antaeus Theatre, where I am a member. And I teach Shakespeare at Antaeus and have done at Cal Arts and Barnardo College and all sorts of places. So that's me. And I don't tend to act very much anymore because there aren't too many roles for people as old as I am. But here we are.
Wonderful. Glad you could be here.
Thank you.
Michelle.
I'm Michelle Schultz. I'm Los Angeles-based actor and entertainment attorney, active in the local LA theater scene. And the last time that I played in Hamlet was well, there were 2, and they were both about this pretty far ago. One was I played Gertrude in my high school production of Hamlet. And then when I was at law school, I played Gertrude in a very interesting Czech play called Poor Murderer, which was about a troupe of actors doing Hamlet. And so I played the lead actress in the troupe and also did a lot of Gertrude scenes. And that's basically my experience playing Hamlet.
Excellent. I was waiting to hear that there were a bunch of lawyers doing the play somewhere, but I guess we'll have to wait for that somewhere else. And Nick.
Ready, go.
Hi, I'm Nick Bettens. I'm here. I'm an actor. I met Randall and Ann in college, and I've been studying with them since.
Fantastic. All right. I think that covers all the people that'll be reading the scene. The observers, hopefully we can have you guys chime in somewhere over the weeks. Like I said, there's a lot to get to, so I'll disappear to the back of the theater, let you guys have fun, and check back in towards the end. So, but I'll be listening in. Have a great time.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan. Okay, I just want to say hello to all those people whose pictures are not on the screen. And I know they're in the background there. And thank you for joining us. So I think the best way to start is to just read up until Hamlet's soliloquy. And then we'll open it up for exploration and conversation. And hopefully we can work our way to another reading at the end of this session. For our purposes right now, and anyone who attended the first session will definitely get a chance to read in these next 4 weeks. So if it's not today, it is coming. And then anyone who is new and attending and wishes to continue with us will have an opportunity down the road. The reason we're doing that is that I think sometimes we forget that every line gives birth to the next line. We tend to look at scenes as separate entities, but there's so much that happens in a scene that will come up in another scene and is important to the progression of the play, that I always feel that it's important for everyone to study Act One, even if you're Osric, to see how you fit into the whole play. And so that's why we thought we'll do that first scene. Everyone who is part of it for 4 weeks has a kind of working knowledge of it, and is ready to move on to this one. And I think the same will happen with the next session that we do up ahead, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Okay. So let's start. Randy, I'm going to ask you to do Claudius. Ben, I'm going to ask you to do Hamlet. Liz Swain, let's make sure that you're acting and let you do Gertrude. And then Larry, do Polonius, please. Nick, if you do Laertes, and Lee, if you take Voltimand. And I know these are just like one-liners, but as I said, we'll keep switching roles as we go. And I think I covered everyone, right? When you're ready, Randy.
Though yet of Hamlet, our dear brother's death, the memory be green, and that it us befitted to bear our hearts in grief, and our whole kingdom to be contracted in one brow of woe, yet so far hath discretion fought with nature, that we with wisest sorrow think on him, together with remembrance of ourselves. Therefore our sometime sister, now our queen, the imperial jointress of this warlike state, have we, as 'twere with a defeated joy, with one auspicious and one dropping eye, with mirth in funeral and with dirge in marriage, in equal scale weighing delight and dole, taken to wife. Nor have we herein barred your better wisdoms, which have freely gone with this affair along, for all our thanks. Now follows, that you know young Fortinbras, holding a weak supposal of our worth, or thinking by our late dear brother's death our state to be disjoint and out of frame, colleagued with the dream of his advantage, he has not failed to pester us with message, importing the surrender of those lands lost by his father, with all bonds of law, to our most valiant brother. So much for him. Now for ourself, and for this time of meeting, thus much the business is. We have here writ to Norway, uncle of young Fortinbras, who impotent and bedrid scarcely hears of this his nephew's purpose, to suppress his further gait herein, and that the levies, the lists, and full proportions are all made out of his subject, and we here dispatch you, good Cornelius, and you, Voltimand, for bearing of this greeting to old Norway, giving to you no further personal power to business with the king, more than the scope of these dilated articles allow. Farewell, and let your haste commend your duty.
In that and all things will we show our duty.
We doubted nothing. Heartily, farewell. And now, Laertes, what's the news with you? You told us of some suit. So what is it, Laertes? You cannot speak of reason to the Dane and lose your voice. What wouldst thou beg, Laertes, that shall not be my offer, not thy asking? The head is not more native to the heart, the hand more instrumental to the mouth, than is the throne of Denmark to thy father. What wouldst thou have, Laertes?
Dread, my lord, your leave and favor to return to France, from whence, though willingly I came to Denmark to show my duty in your coronation, yet now I must confess, that duty done, my thoughts and wishes bend again towards France, and bow them to your gracious leave and pardon.
Well, have you your father's leave? What says Polonius?
He hath, my lord. I do beseech you, give him leave to go.
But take thy fair hour, Laertes, time be thine, and thy best graces spended at thy will. But now, my cousin Hamlet, and my son?
A little more than kin, and less than kind.
How is it that the clouds still hang on you?
Not so, my lord. I am too much in the sun.
Good Hamlet, cast thy knightly colour off, and let thine eye look like a friend on Denmark. Do not forever with thy veiled lids seek for thy noble father in the dust. Thou know'st 'tis common. All that lives must die, passing through nature to eternity.
Aye, madam, it is common.
If it be, why seems it so particular with thee?
Seems, madam. Nay, it is, I know not seems. 'Tis not alone my inky cloak, good mother, nor customary suits of solemn black, nor windy suspiration of forced breath, no, nor the fruitful river of the eye, nor the dejected behavior of the visage, together with all forms, moods, shows of grief that can denote me truly. These indeed seem, for they are actions that a man might play. But I have that within which passeth show. These but the trappings and the suits of woe.
'Tis sweet and commendable in your nature, Hamlet, to give these mourning duties to your father. But you must know, your father lost a father. His father lost his, and the survivor bound in filial obligation for some term to do obsequious sorrow. But to persever in obstinate condolement is a course of impious stubbornness. 'Tis unmanly grief. It shows a will most incorrect to heaven, a heart unfortified, a mind impatient, an understanding simple and unschooled, for what we know must be, and is as common as any the most vulgar thing to sense. Why should we in our peevish opposition take it to heart? Fie, 'tis a fault to heaven, a fault against the dead, a fault to nature, to reason most absurd, whose common theme is death of fathers, and with still cried from the first corse till he that died today, this must be so. We pray you, throw to earth this unprevailing woe, and think of us as of a father. Well, let the world take note. You were the most immediate to our throne, and with no less nobility of love than that which dearest father bears his son, do I impart towards you. Now, for your intent in going back to school in Wittenberg, it is most retrograde to our desire, and we beseech you, bend you to remain here in the cheer and comfort of our eye, our chiefest courtier cousin, and our son.
Let not thy mother lose her prayers, Hamlet. I prithee, stay with us. Go not to Wittenberg.
Shall in all my best obey you, madam.
Aye, 'tis a loving and a fair reply. Be as ourself in Denmark. Madam, come. This gentle and unforced accord of Hamlet sits smiling to my heart, in grace whereof no jocund health that Denmark drinks today, but the great cannon to the cloud shall tell, and the king's rouse, the heavens shall brew it again, re-speaking earthly thunder. Come, away.
Good.
Okay.
Good. Okay. So let me just open that up first to you guys in terms of observations, questions, or anything that you think about this scene. Anything?
I have a question
Yeah.
about Gertrude as the imperial jointress.
Yeah.
I mean, she means that she has power.
Yes. In fact, I'm glad you raised it, because what has happened is that jointress means that she has been given old Hamlet's wealth and lands, and it goes past, it should be given to young Hamlet, but she has a contract that has put it in her hands.
Got it.
So what's important about that, and of course imperial carries the idea of emperor royalty, so she has a royal contract that puts that power, lands, money into her hands, which again makes this marriage very important. And it's not the only time that this is going to be mentioned. Claudius mentions this also about Norway. The reason that he wants Norway to talk to Fortinbras, young Fortinbras, is because the lists, the military, the money, all comes out of Norway's subjects. So that idea of possession and money is the thing that can back a war. And you notice that Claudius calls this warlike state. We've also learned on the parapet that the ghost is walking around in armor. We've talked, these guys are keeping the watch. They don't know why, but military equipment is being built. And the kind of haste that one is making to make sure that we are fortified with men and military machinery is beyond these men who are keeping watch. They can't understand. Remember Marcellus's speech. They can't understand why it's happening. So war and money to back that war is very important. So she is essential. Even if we just took, Liz, those two words, she is essential to Claudius becoming king and also having great power in this kingdom. Which of course now opens up another issue, which is, why is he king? We have a son, we have Hamlet, but he doesn't become king. So Gertrude, I think, is quite instrumental in having that decision made. The other thing is that Hamlet was away at school. His father died before he got back. So we'll learn at the end of the play, if you remember, those of you who've read ahead, is at the end of the play, he gives Fortinbras his voice. He says, Fortinbras has my voice. Old Hamlet is dead. So before he was even able to give Hamlet his voice, his vote, his acknowledgement as the prince who should be king, is gone. It didn't happen. So that opened up the possibility of Claudius taking advantage of that little absence and the death of the king to be able to move in and become king himself. That's a big part of all of this. Let me ask you this. Is everybody clear on why this meeting is happening?
No.
I'm only, yeah, go ahead.
No.
Oh, no. The reason I'm asking
is it the first big court meeting after he took over the throne?
It is, but I think that if we look at Claudius's lines, he says the reason for this meeting, he says it right out. And he talks about this invasion, that's possible invasion from Fortinbras. He has set this up as a possible war. Interesting, I won't say anything beyond this next sentence I'm about to say, but it's sort of interesting that we're talking about I don't have to say much more, do I? But a government that is using war to show power, to show, to get a lot done that perhaps that individual would not get done. I'll stop there. However, I think that, and Liz, I don't know, because you've had this similar experiences. I've had years with this play, and I've read scholars who say, oh, it's the wedding. Oh, it's the coronation. Oh, actual scholars who've studied it. But when you look at the lines, which is what we're trying to do right now with this work, Claudius says it right there, for the reason for this meeting. And this is it. It's Fortinbras, the possible invasion of Fortinbras. And not only is that the reason for the meeting, it's also going to give him a reason for having married Gertrude, which is an incestuous marriage. And it would have been an incestuous marriage to Elizabethans, and that would have been true in England all the way up to 1907. And the only way you could marry your brother-in-law is like in the case of Henry VIII marrying Catherine of Aragon. They had no children. And so you would be able to conceive with that woman because she didn't have a child with his brother. They're saying that's the only reason. But Gertrude has Hamlet. We have an heir. So incest would have been, to the Elizabethan audience, incest would have been quite obvious. If that's not obvious to our audience, or we don't give a hoot about it, it's fine to marry a brother-in-law if you choose. There's a question of time here. And Shakespeare's quite, how when we work on Shakespearean plays, and time tends to be vague. It's not always, you can't count out the days always in a Shakespearean play. Or if you can count out the days, you certainly can't, you can't count out the hours, or the months. But in this play, he very clearly says that the king, and it's coming up, of course, in Hamlet's soliloquy, that the king has died less than 2 months ago, and that Gertrude has married within a month of that death. That's a pretty fast marriage. And as you look through, certain historical examples, people, at least 3 months was in the working for Henry VIII for some of his wives. But most of the time for royalty, it would have been well over a year. And not only would you be mourning, you would have black drapery. You would have your clothing, your very fan would be in mourning. There would be no idea of throwing it off until you did homage to this member of royalty. And this king was beloved. We've learned that from Horatio. This is not a king that everybody was saying, "I can't wait till he's gone." This was somebody who was loved.
And even Claudius himself in his speech says that it's been not too long ago that my brother died.
That's Green. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. So even he, in his very speech, refers to the recentness of old King Hamlet's death. The other thing, too, the occasion for this meeting is how he's going to respond to Norway. He's telling the court that I've written a letter to old Norway to stop his nephew. Right? I've taken political action.
Yes.
I just had a thought about that, and maybe one of those sort of unanswerable, unplayable thoughts. But I was just thinking about what you said with it's almost that the Fortinbras thing is a great opportunity to be his coming out party. I wonder, is it, they've done, I mean, because I've seen so many productions where it is the coronation, it is this big public thing, but if it isn't, if it is sort of like they've done this marriage, they've, and maybe it hasn't been trumpeted around because it is a little shady, but then all of a sudden there is this opportunity, to actually step up and be the king. And maybe to a good chance to get everybody marching in the same direction. Anyone that might be thinking, "Ooh, is the right person king?" I don't know. Just I never thought about it. Boy, this play doesn't work without Fortinbras. My production doesn't count anymore. It just doesn't count anymore. I've never played Hamlet.
You're absolutely right. And it's eye-opening because he is cut out so often.
Yeah.
But that's what I think about that first scene also, is that the information that, how everybody was groaning about Horatio's speech about Fortinbras and the battle and all of that. It's important to, and I think Sandy brought it up last time. It's essential to have great actors doing all of it. And it's, so that when that speech comes out, it stays with you. You don't sit there and look at your watch. You feel like very pertinent information has been passed on, and now it's going to come up again in this scene. And you're right, Ben, look at the opportunity. It gives an excuse for the hasty marriage, because, and that's why I think you have Claudius saying, dirge and marriage, the opposites, the antithesis of feeling and reason. And the reason, of course we miss our brother. Of course we should all be mourning our brother. But there's circumstances that are forcing us to think of ourselves. And I'm thinking of protecting our country. That's what this is about, this warlike state. So all of a sudden, things that we get shoved aside that are very important. I told Randy that in the source material, I always laugh about it because when we were talking to Nick after one of the sessions, I I always bring up Saxo Grammaticus, which is the source material. And Nick said to me, "Did you read it?" I said, "Yes, of course I read Saxo Grammaticus. I'm working on Hamlet." So he said, "I thought maybe you just kind of picked out little sentences here and there." But it really is a wonderful read, because what it does is it shows you where Shakespeare might have gotten some of these ideas, but also where he veers away from it. In that play, there is no Fortinbras. In that play,
Not a
Claudius,
play.
I'm sorry, that's right. Thank you, Randy. In that story, Claudius kills the old Hamlet figure right in front of everybody in the court. But the important thing in that I found in that play is that character, his name is Fengen, that character gathered around him support. And so I'm wondering now, the mutes, the mutes that are in this play, those people who, for all our thanks, those of you who've gone along with it, it seems to be quite a select group of people who have gone along with something that they should have objected to. Yeah, Sandy.
Well, I just in that vein, because unlike you and Randy, I haven't really studied the scene in a long time. And wow, some things really jumped. The tone of what Claudius has to say really jumped out at me. I mean, that the way he speaks about even Norway, bedridden, impotent. I mean, the way he really and really takes the reins fully, as king, including how he speaks to his nephew. I mean, it really hit me in a way that I don't think it has hit me before. How much, because I know from working with you about the lineage and how he shouldn't be king, but boy, oh boy, he leaves no room for doubt, does he?
No, he doesn't. He's terrific. He's a master at it. I think he's a master at it, because he's covering all his bases. When he says that impotent, and I think in your folio, you'll see capital letters there, that he's actually pointing out that Norway's impotent, but who do you have as your Danish king? Somebody who's certainly not impotent and bedrid, am I? So he's using everything to his advantage to show how fortunate everyone is to have him as king, so that they can be deflected from the problems with him becoming king. Isn't this, it's kind of mind-blowing. Yeah, Liz, let's go Liz first and then Larry.
He takes care of Hamlet. Obviously, if Hamlet went back to school, he might raise an army and come back. So he takes care of him very well. But he also, by appointing him the heir and all of those things in public, it's like he really is very, very clever with the one big danger that there is Hamlet, and he knows it right there and then.
Yes. And what he does is he puts that up against Fortinbras, because Fortinbras has put a group together. We've learned that in the first scene, that he's a threat to Norway, and all of a sudden it clicked, probably in his mind, that Hamlet can be a threat too. He can put together a group of people to come and oppose me. So he has to cover all of this. This is why I think, I know I'm jumping ahead, forgive me, but as we go through the play, I think we'll start to find out that Claudius's only recourse is to stay alive, because there's so much that he is doing that's wrong, that in the end, and of course, when we find out that he did kill his brother, in the end, it's all going to catch up to him. So the only thing he can do is to just make sure, and he's religious enough, because we know that in the play too, to worry about what's going to happen when he dies. So that's another part of it. The other thing, I think we're on a roll now. I want to, you were talking about the way Claudius speaks. I think it changes. I think what you get in the beginning, and Randy and I talked about this, the line that he has about the hand is not more native to the mouth. That is a description of rhetoric. When one speaks, one gestures, right? And that's what he talks, that's the compliment he pays to Polonius. I'm wondering if Polonius doesn't have some influence on the early part of this speech. The only reason I say it is that look at the syntax of that first line. Though yet of Hamlet, our dear brother's death, the memory be green. Though yet of Hamlet, it almost sounds like a kind of political color to it. Because when he gets to Laertes, we get a different Claudius here. What's the suit with you? You told us of some suit, Laertes. What's the news with you? You told us. It gets more relaxed. Now, that's, Ben, this goes back to something that probably can't be played. But what it does for me is it makes me, if I was staging it, I'd make sure Polonius was right next to Claudius to understand how instrumental Polonius is. We love playing Polonius as a bumbling old fool. And Polonius is as crafty as Claudius. So, you know, and he messes up, no doubt. But I think that because he's a politician, look at Polonius, even shares that root. But he knows how to make arguments. He knows how to function in a political world. So even though we'll never be able to say, oh yes, that's where he wrote the speech, it's not so much about that as if indeed he influenced Claudius, is the beginning of, when you deliver the beginning of Claudius's speech, does it have a kind of political feel to it? You notice also, no one calls old Hamlet king. He's brother, he's father, but he's never king. And who calls, when did we hear about him being a king? From the soldiers, from Act 1, Scene 1. That's how they know him, not here. Gertrude doesn't refer to him as king, and Claudius doesn't refer. He's his brother. So that's another, I think, important. I'm learning from these plays after all these years, and you know, you guys probably learned it before me, is the silences are equally important to what's being said. And when you read a lot of the scholarly material, they look at it as literature. It's not literature, it's a play. And it cannot come to life unless actors take it on and play it, because it's how one reacts to what's being said. It's how one interprets what's being said. It's not just an intellectual, this is what it means, and therefore, or here's the historical background. I fill myself in on all of it because I want to know, I want to get as close to that world as I can get. But the acting is in your hands. The acting is not in my hands, nor is it in my apologies to any director who thinks it's in his or her hands. It's not. It's in the actor's hands, you know, and your hands are at work when there are silences. And this scene has got to be filled with, Liz, I'm going to go back to Gertrude for a moment, because look what happens. You have Hamlet, you have three things that happen. You have Hamlet, and Ben, I thought you did a beautiful job of being rude, because that's what he is. He's saying it right. He's not complimenting Claudius in any way. And so what happens at the end of that? Gertrude comes in. And then Hamlet uses his wit, his ability to say, yes, it is common. And that word common has two meanings, meaning natural, normal, usual, and also low. And you're playing on those words. Who hears that? Claudius here. Who comes in to help? Claudius now comes in to help. So that, if we're staging it, that moment, Hamlet couched between Claudius and Gertrude, because Hamlet's the obstacle here. The court's not the obstacle. They're our Congress. They're not going to do anything. They are going to be quiet. They're going to follow the rules. They're going to do whatever Claudius told them to do and agree to an incestuous marriage, fine. And the fact that Hamlet's said, fine, I'll agree to it. So the the focus, though, the guy who can upset the apple cart big times is Hamlet. And both of them, I think we have to create a world where both of them understand how tough it is to deal with Hamlet. That's why he's dangerous. If he's just a sad milquetoast, mourning, crying, throwing his black cloak around his shoulders, it doesn't matter. He's no threat. But Hamlet is quite threatening in this scene. He's not bending to them. And the only time he bends is at the end of the scene. I will in all my best obey you, madam. Other than that, that speech about scenes. Are you going to tell me about mourning? You should be mourning, he's saying to her, you know. So I want to look at that particular section again, because I think that's where the little pauses between are important. Does that make sense to everybody, or am I just off on a wild world? But that's where I want to, to look at, as we move through it, what's said and what's the impact on the people hearing it. And I think Voltimand, by the way, and Cornelius, they give words to what everybody else in the court feels. In that and everything will show our duty. And look at the other thing that happens. Claudius says to them, nothing more than what is listed on this paper are you allowed to talk about. So he's even put a restriction there, the way he's restricted the guards who are keeping watch from knowing why they're even keeping watch. He is the one who's going to have to, he's got to do, what a terrible battle for him, though, I have to say. And that's the thing that I think, it's not that it's just a piece of cake, let me have it. What was the play that, Phoebe Brand was talking about the Merchant of Venice, not Merchant of Venice, I'm sorry, Othello. And she was coaching an actor doing Iago. And she said to the actor, you think is this easy for Iago, or is this hard for Iago to pull this off? And the actor said, well, I think it's I mean, he's a villain, and she said, no, it's the hardest thing he's ever done. And that's what brings the energy to Iago onto the stage. And that's the same thing with Claudius. He's got to work damn hard to pull all of this off.
Even that first word of his, those first two, though yet, it's almost like just don't say anything.
Yes.
This, here, I'm going to win this. I'm going to take charge. Yeah, he's got to fight. He's fighting for control as soon as he opens his mouth, or to assert control and to really solidify, right?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it's his first moment. This is his first moment as king. We've had a coronation, we've had the burial of the old king, we've had a marriage. This is his speech to the troops, this is it for the first time. So yeah, Lee, I think you're absolutely right.
And we know that there's upset in the kingdom because of what we heard on the battlements, right?
That's right.
Yeah, the people are upset, but we will do everything you say.
Because the threat is external. It's coming from another country.
Right,
which forces them to galvanize. Yeah.
Michelle.
Yes, Claudius is really the consummate politician. He knows the first rule of, if there's something inconvenient that people are arguing about,
deflect.
You distract the people and unite them against a common enemy. It is one of the oldest tricks in the political book, and it's amazing to see it so clearly set out in this scene.
And so you see him also, Larry, I'll be right there.
Okay.
You see him also changed again, but that's part of his ability to be a people pleaser, or not a people pleaser, but a politician. You get that first speech is different than how he deals with Laertes. And then I think Liz brought it up, how he deals with Hamlet. Because the kindness he's showing to Hamlet, even though it's coming out of his mouth, is shocking You are the most immediate to our throne. Yeah, whose throne? Whose throne? But he makes it seem as if it's natural. You know, he also puts incest right out there. Our sister, now our queen, you know, our courtier cousin and son. He puts it right out there. Why? Because without him, the battle's lost. We're going to lose Denmark.
And he's normalizing the problem too.
Yeah.
He's normalizing that ethical
Right.
issue.
Yeah.
I've always been impressed by Claudius's intelligence. He's the smartest man in the room. He talks to each individual as an individual, not in general terms, like he said with Laertes, with Hamlet, with Gertrude, with the population. That he talks first about the death of his brother, not the wedding, not that he's king, none of this. It's just this terrible, sad thing has happened, and it's awful. And now here's my beautiful bride, but it's, and he slides these things around. He's very slick and very, I think, highly intelligent, which is his undoing in the end, of course.
Yeah. Yes. And I think also that in the midst of it, in the midst of this, he has to do what he has to do. This is the wonderful thing about Claudius, and I think all characters. You have to do what you have to do to achieve your goal. And his goal, he will say it later on in the play, my queen, the crown, and my own ambition. And that's what he went into this whole setup to accomplish. So he's got to be good at what he does. So anything else anybody sees? Let's talk about Laertes. Oh, Larry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick things. That was me in the Phoebe Brand story. And I was really struck by Claudius's language in his first long speech. The whole beginning of it, it's almost as if it was written to him or told to him. It's he uses so many different things, defeated joy, one auspicious and one drooping eye, mirth and funeral, dirge and marriage. And there's a lot of that. And I saw with that period after, for all our thanks.
Yep.
And then it changes. And he explains to those lords attendant who may know something's afoot, but not the whole story about why all the war preparations and why this is happening. He tells them the problem. And then he also tells them the solution that he has. I am going to do this. I'm going to do this. So I felt that he's not only telling, but showing the people he's a man of action. I'm going to stop this. I'm doing this.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the other thing that I want to point out is, because it's going to happen throughout the play, look at how many times he talks about reason. This is not an empathetic, emotional man. This is a man, you cannot speak of reason to the Dane and lose your voice. You know, discretion, he says that it's through discretion that we've thought of ourselves. He doesn't weep over his brother's death. You don't find a lot of emotion from Claudius because he will constantly side with reason. Look at his speech to Hamlet. He does not address Hamlet's sadness. Hamlet's what mourning is, what the loss of a loved one is. What he says is this behavior of all is a certain time that one mourns. But to do this for a long period of time it's a fault against the dead. It's a reason most absurd, he says. Everything with Claudius is reason. He believes that. So when Chuck says he's smart, you know, we keep pointing out these things, but he uses his head more than his heart. I don't think there's a moment in here, even when Laertes later on is going to burst into the castle, and he's not fearful. Let him alone, Gertrude, he says. He's always ready to argue his way out through reason. That's not Hamlet. And I think you're seeing the juxtaposition of the man of reason versus the man who's mourning the death of his father when imminent danger is at the door. We don't want somebody crying now. It's the last thing we need. But then what are feelings? Because if he had feelings, would he have killed his brother? You know, so that's something to just keep an eye on as we go through it. Randy, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Nope.
Are you enjoying this?
Oh, loads.
Yes, Michelle.
One thing in the speech of Claudius to Hamlet, he draws a comparison, again, very cleverly, suggesting that Hamlet is somehow too feminine, sweet, unmanly grief. So he's kind of very subtly undermining Hamlet as a potential leader.
Yes, yes, you're right.
Good
He's
point.
the star of this scene. This scene is about Claudius. This is not about Hamlet. This is about Claudius. Hamlet will have his turn when the soliloquy comes up, and then he can pour his heart out to us. But it's about Claudius. We get to learn who Claudius is. We don't quite fully get to learn who Gertrude is. We'll see more of her through the course of the play. But she is trying to, even in her good Hamlet, cast thy knightly color off. Knightly means dark, but it also means defender, a knight who defends the king. So she's playing on, no, she's not playing on it, but Shakespeare has put a word in there that carries the riches of two meanings. And let thyself look like a friend on Denmark. So she knows through what Hamlet has said that this isn't a pleasant encounter between the two of them. The other thing that I think is wonderful about the scene is it is one of the few scenes that I know of where the description of a character and what that character is wearing is quite clear. That black and that cape, he is engulfed in grief. And the rest of the court is not. The rest of the court has thrown away their mourning and they are back to being part of the court. The reason I say it is, why would she say cast thy knightly color off? They've gotten rid of their mourning clothes. They're ready to move on. How you do it on stage becomes a wonderful challenge, I think. Do you dress them? I've seen productions that have dressed them in gold, go far as making them look just splendid, and then or more subdued choices. But the contrast has to be there between Hamlet and the rest of the court.
Do you know about that? Sorry, do you know about that production? I think it was in Russia in 1917, where the whole court was draped in the gold cloak.
Yes, yes, yes.
Have you seen the pictures of it?
Yes, yeah.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those choices become, this is where, of course, we're on Zoom and we're looking at the script, but that's where it starts to, like, trying to find out how do we get rid of the ghost in the first scene? What happens to the ghost in the first scene? It's the same thing here. What story do we want to tell with this first scene? We've also been told that Marcellus knows exactly, I know, most conveniently, where we'll find him this morning.
Right.
So we know it's the morning after the sighting of the ghost the third time. And that this meeting is known by perhaps members of the military, but this meeting was known because Marcellus certainly knows about it. Horatio doesn't, which of course makes you realize that he's not part of the Danish court. He's just come back from Wittenberg, of course, right? Good. Anything else? Oh, I have one of course I do. I have one other thing, and that's Laertes. Look at Laertes' speech. Laertes we're in the midst of a war, and you're asking permission to
To
go
leave.
back to France, because that's where I want to go. And look at the words, dread, my lord. I think you're shaking in your boots. I think that that it's not just a young man asking, okay, can I go? I would suggest to fill it up with, you're standing in front of the king, you're having to ask him to leave to go to France in the midst of something where he's just told us that there's trouble brewing. I think you'll see the way it's written with the commas and the punctuation itself. There is room in there, Nick, to almost have hesitation and not so, not feel like I have to get through the whole thing smoothly. This is Laertes up against, and it's Claudius who says, well, what does your father say? I'll do anything that if your father wants it, it's fine by me. Again, the importance of Polonius. But it becomes interesting to see each character now take on the circumstance and not just the speeches.
Also, isn't it interesting just politically how Laertes makes such a point of saying, I came back for your coronation, not for the
Yeah.
funeral, which
right.
if it's a public scene
Yeah.
seems an interesting, I mean, I always, then contrasted with Horatio, who comes in and says the opposite, obviously. But I always find that interesting that he
Mhm.
just so
I think you're absolutely right.
blatantly,
Yeah, and that capital C on coronation. I mean, that folio, once you get used to it, you can wear it like an old suit of clothes, you'll find that it really does everything that we're talking about. It manages to put in the punctuation in one line, because he shows you what to emphasize. Impotent and bedrid, capital. So it's not just impotent and bedrid. He's featuring it. And so Claudius gets to feature that. And I think
it does
what?
I was going to say, it just leads me to a specific question with Laertes, though, which is that just something he's saying? Or did he indeed not come back to Denmark when he heard the king died? Was it Polonius saying, no, you don't, no, now you need to come back because now you need to get in some face time with the new guy? I just wonder, is it just something he says, but he was back because everyone comes back when the king dies? Or did he legitimately not come back? And again, maybe unactable, but interesting to think about. I don't know.
It is important.
I just never thought of that before.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, I think that's a question I don't know that it's answerable. He doesn't have a speech later on about it, but I think it does raise the question of why everything in the scene, it seems to, other than what Claudius says in the very beginning, seems to normalize, as Lee said, the death of that king. That the more important thing for Laertes is to show the king that he was there for his coronation. And I think that that's an important thing to take a look at. Whether we'd have the answer finally to it, I don't know. But if you're playing Laertes, then use your imagination to know that, because to lie and to tell the truth is the same action. I say this in every acting class I teach. You've got to convince the person you're telling the truth, even if you're lying. So many times on stage, it's this, we want to say to the audience, get that, I'm lying. You get it? We'll get it. But to tell the action's the same. So if he didn't come home for the funeral, or he did come home for the funeral, the important thing is to let Claudius know he was there for his coronation. Was wonderful to be there for that. But now that that's done, there's not much need for me to be here. So there are a lot of questions that won't be answered, but I think as the actor, it shows you where to put your energy, why he's saying what he's saying. Does that make sense? I think too, when you look at Hamlet, seems, look at that long spelling on seems. I know, not seems, that he's making a to-do about that. The impression one gives of mourning. I have that within. No one in this court has that within. I think, again, all this will lead to Hamlet wanting, wishing that God wasn't opposed to suicide. That's how low he is, because he's the only one who has feelings in this scene about his dead father. Everybody else is passing it off like, okay, oops, that's done. And it's been 2 months. And now we don't even mention him as a king. In fact, let's not even talk about that. Let's talk about our strong king. And that's all in this scene. Yeah, Terry.
Well, I have a question, and I also really love the fact that this first piece with Claudius is so much like a press conference in that it's very prepared, his opening statements, and very much, all the language is so carefully chosen and cleverly chosen. And then he comes to the question and answer portion where he talks to Laertes and Hamlet. But my big question is, or a question, reading it is, why does Hamlet agree to stay? It seems as though he is very, much would love to get out of there. He has a certain amount of disregard for his mother and for, of course, Claudius. But there's something in that relationship with his mother that when she asks him to, he agrees to stay. But that's a huge decision. And why does he make it, is my question.
Yes, let me address that too, because I think you will notice that the word "we pray you" throw to earth this unprevailing woe. We pray you, he said. Claudius says. She says, I beg you, let not your mother lose her prayers. She used the word, I don't have it in front of me, I'm sorry. Can you just pick up Gertrude's speech to him?
I'm trying to find it. I've got it right here.
Yeah, it's right after Claudius has given his.
I'm so sorry, I'm being so.
That's okay.
Okay. Good Hamlet, cast thy knightly colour off, and let thine eye look like a friend on Denmark. Do not for ever with thy veiled lids seek for thy noble father in the dust. Thou know'st 'tis common, all that lives must die, passing through nature to eternity.
Yes, and there's no "I pray you." Good Hamlet, cast thy knightly color, she says. She doesn't say, I beg you, cast your knightly, I beseech you, cast. Nothing is happening. She's not begging him. She's demand sounds hard, but she's putting it right out there. Get rid of your mourning and be kind to Denmark. Now, Liz, if you go to her next speech and listen to what that says.
If it be, why seems it so particular?
I'm sorry, let me stop. At the end, the end speech.
The very end speech.
Yes.
Let not thy mother lose her prayers.
Yes.
Let not thy mother lose her prayers, Hamlet. I prithee, stay with us. Go not to Wittenberg.
I prithee.
Pleading, yeah.
Yes. So we get, and I was thinking of it last night, actually. I thought I would almost have her start to go to her knees, to really do something that makes it so important to her that he can't refuse, Terry.
I don't think he says yes, though. I think he says, I'll try.
Yeah, I have a question. I mean, he says it because it's the correct thing to say to his mother at that point, but it's really the ghost that makes him stay finally, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And even the men coming in the next scene.
Yes.
But if we're addressing it to this scene, and why doesn't he?
The moment by moment.
Say, I will stay, or in my best, I'll obey you. I think that we have to at least see something happening between Gertrude and Hamlet that makes him in this moment feel I will try to obey.
I mean, it's also, I think, is as simple as it's a kind invitation to do something as opposed to just feeling as being shamed for how you're feeling. And I just, I think about somebody lost in grief, and just doesn't take a whole lot to steer that, and then as you say, he gets a lot more purpose later on in the scene, but that the purpose in going to Wittenberg isn't like a driving force in his, it's just sort of a drift back to where you're going to get out of here. But and just the motherly pull of just please feels like enough, without getting Oedipal about it or anything, which I know people sure loved to do a while ago, especially. But like, I mean, that just feels like enough to me in this, when there's nothing else, purposeless at this
But
point.
you're right, though, and I think not getting Oedipal about it, but he once adored his mother as much as he adored his father. That's why one gets disappointed if you don't care about your parents, you think, I always hated that woman. Chances are you're not going to, care if she has an affair with someone or whatever. But if you care about someone and they disappoint you because they become something you never dreamed that they could be, then that is, you are in an emotional state. So I think that that's still at play here. I don't think he is totally, while she's in the room at least, rejected. I think it's when he's speaking to the audience that now this starts to come up. Let me not think on it when I'm alone and I'm allowing the soliloquy, letting all of these thoughts come. It gets worse and worse and worse.
I think that's the genius of the playwright, in that he has a public face and then he gives the character a private face where he goes to soliloquy to the audience. He does this in all of his plays. That's why his villains are so great, because they're publicly the good guy, and then you find how big a bastard the bastard really is. And I think here, he says to her, "I will obey you. I will seek to obey you," to his mother. But his dead father, is the one who gives them the purpose for staying, who drives him to that last scene. It just seems like to me, it's that family dynamic, that triangle, the mother, father, and the son, and he's directed by both of them.
Yes.
He can't help himself, and it's not Oedipal. It's just
No.
it's primal, actually. I think more.
Yes. Let me also add something to all of this, and that is to never feel that we have to answer all the questions. The thing that makes this play so wonderful and makes it live on are the questions we're left with. Holding that mirror up to nature allows us to leave the theater and say, no, I don't know. I think that he was this, or I think she's that, or I think what Shakespeare gives. Randy and I were talking the other night about adultery. There's a lot of question about, did Claudius and Gertrude have an affair before old Hamlet died? Because old Hamlet as the ghost will use the word adulterate beast. Now, one looks at it and says, well, adulterate beast means that he had a relationship with her while she was still married. Well, the word will take on a different take. But that question comes up and people try to solve it. And there's no solving of it. We don't have a speech that says, I remembered before he died how wonderful it was to be with you. There's no speech like that. So it's a question that's planted and it stays as a question. It's not anything that we have to answer. So that Shakespeare's saying, that's not the important part here. I'll give you what's important to know, and you leave the theater and go to the pub and discuss, I don't know, if she was with him that quickly after that old king died, she had to have an affair. No, I don't know. That's what makes the play live so long, are the questions, not the answers. And we tend to want to put a cap on all the questions. And that's why when we conceptualize this stuff to a point that says, I want to tell you what to think. Where Shakespeare says, I want you to be you and look in that mirror and think what you think. That's the difference. So I would say embrace the questions. And if you can't find the answer in the play, yes, maybe there is none. The question is pertinent to the life of the play. Okay? Yeah, Larry.
I just had a thought about the language that Gertrude uses. Her first thing, it's almost like court speak. Let thine eye look like a friend on Denmark. Veiled lids, seek thy noble father in the dust. And then her last thing to Hamlet, it's a very tender, heartfelt mother asking something of her son, you know, and she even uses the word mother. She plays the mother card. Don't let your mother lose her prayers. I prithee, stay with us.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying. Hold on. Because
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. You're repeating what I've just said, is that it changes at the end. It's a different Gertrude speak there. I do
Right.
want to go back to what you said about cast thy nightly color off and add an element to that. And that is, this is public. This is an embarrassment publicly. If Hamlet doesn't pull it together, both Gertrude and Claudius are being embarrassed in front of this court. And by the way, anybody who's out there and wants to play Ophelia, you've got to be in this scene. You've got to see this scene to move forward as Ophelia. And it's there in the folio. I mean, the cast of who's in the scene. But that's, Larry, that's what I think you may be pointing at here, is that it's not so much court speech, but how does one remain a queen and deal with a kind of unacceptable behavior from your son. However, when Claudius gives that long speech about how long one should mourn and and is gracious enough to say, please, he says, he begs also, stay here, our courtier cousin and our son. That speech, I think, now allows her to put the cherry on the top by saying, listen, do it for me. Do it for me, Hamlet. Don't let me lose my prayer. So that may, and Ben, that goes back to you, that may open and Terry, it may open in Hamlet, that change that you're talking about, Larry, may open in Hamlet. Oh, wait a minute. The tone is different. Maybe she is more loving, or maybe, you see, that's why we have to keep it moving and changing as we go. I think one of the things we have to be very careful about in these sessions is I think it's interesting, and I think, it's worth putting out there, but in the end, we have to say, how does it affect how we act it? Because you don't want to go out there and say, I'm acting political speeches now. All
Right.
it is human beings achieving something that they need to get done. What we have to do is say, why are they speaking in that particular way? I think that's what you're pointing out, is that Gertrude, the circumstances that Gertrude has to respond to Hamlet's behavior. Hamlet comes, his treatment of Claudius comes before she says those lines. These people don't come in with a set character saying, here's how I'm going to speak to everybody. I'm a politician, so I'll just speak political talk. I'm royalty, I'll just do royal talk. It's the thing that I hate about watching Shakespeare. It never sounds like people are talking. It sounds like it's speech making. But it's real. This is why he's brilliant. He's a great playwright. He's visceral. He's not intellectual. He's managed to take what may seem intellectual and bring life into it. So even if it is, though yet of Hamlet, our dear brothers, look at that deer at the E at the end of deer. Be green. If you see that it's still humanity behind it, but humanity that needs something. And what do I have to do to get what I want? And who am I speaking to? Do I speak differently to my daughter than I speak to the public, or my son than I speak to the public? This now will lead us to, how do we stage it? Is it a close physical moment? Is the first moment further away? That she's with Claudius and the two of them are presenting a kind of regal front. But then when we get to towards the end of that scene, that she somehow is closer to Hamlet. Tiny little moves like that make all the difference in telling the story. Yeah, Lee, go ahead.
Just following that moment, what I'm focusing on now is I shall in all my best obey you, madam, but it's oddly laid out on the folio page for one thing, and I would have to discuss this for a while before I called this Hamlet saying yes. To me, it's Hamlet saying I'm gonna do my best for you. And what I love about this moment, coming off of the tenderness, if you want to call it that, of Gertrude and Hamlet's tenderish reply, is Claudius seems to cut in. The way I read it, it seems like Claudius is stopping that transaction between them in that moment. 'Tis a loving and a fair reply, be as ourself. In Denmark, madam, come. It almost feels like he's pulling her away from him or splitting them, which I kind of.
And now we're into playing it.
Enacting,
Yeah. And that's our next task in all of it. Once we get all of the heady stuff out of the way, then we can now say, okay, how does it impact the playing of it? And what I'm finding is that the more I look at it, the playing changes. And I think that's what you're trying to get at, Larry. And I think that it changes, how it changes and why. Before we put a cap on it and say it's this, I would say now our next step is to look at the circumstances and look how each character answers the other character. There's no life for the line unless there's a character in front of that line delivering something worth responding to. So I think that's what we're trying to get to. I have no idea what time it is. I live in a timeless world. Sandy, do you know?
It's 5:20.
It's like almost 5:25.
Oh, I want to read it one more time. Can you do that? So let's
switch around
up a little bit. Lee, do you want to do Claudius?
Oh, I'll try.
Right.
Lee, I told Annie that doing Claudius in that first bit is like walking a tightrope over an abyss.
Oh my, yeah. So
and
I'll
he'll
give it a
leave you
shot.
with that. Right.
Yeah.
Michelle, why don't you take Gertrude this time? And Nick, Hamlet, you up for it?
Sure.
Let's just switch it then. Ben, can you do Laertes? I'm just doing this off the cuff, guys. I'm sorry. And Larry, why don't you do a Voltimand? I'm sorry. And who did I leave out? Somebody that was reading before. Voltimand. Is that it?
Right.
Oh, Polonius.
Yeah.
Right, Liz.
Okay.
Good?
Sure.
Let's try. And just see if we can put together some of the stuff that we've discovered about.
Though yet of Hamlet, our dear brother's death, the memory be green, and that it us befitted to bear our hearts in grief, and our whole kingdom to be contracted in one brow of woe, yet so far hath discretion fought with nature, that we with wisest sorrow think on him, together with remembrance of ourselves. Therefore our sometime sister, now our queen, the imperial jointress of this warlike state, have we, as 'twere, with a defeated joy, with one auspicious and one drooping eye, with mirth in funeral, and with dirge in marriage, in equal scale weighing delight and dole, taken to wife. Nor have we herein barred your better wisdoms, which have freely gone with this affair along. For all our thanks. Now follows that you know young Okay, I'm going to try and say this with the punctuation. Now
Good.
follows that you know young Fortinbras, holding a weak supposal of our worth, or by thinking. Sorry, I don't know if I can read it, folks. I'm thinking, I'm dancing around the punctuation in my head.
Yeah, just
Now
relax.
follows. Sorry.
Yeah, just relax. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm trying to serve so many masters in this press. Now follows that you know young Fortinbras, holding a weak supposal of our worth, or thinking by our late dear brother's death, our state to be disjoint and out of frame, colleagued with the dream of his advantage. He hath not failed to pester us with message, importing the surrender of those lands lost by his father, with all bonds of law to our most valiant brother. So much for him. Now for ourselves, and for this time of meeting, thus much the business is. We have here writ to Norway, uncle of young Fortinbras, who, impotent and bedrid, scarcely hears of this his nephew's purpose to suppress his further gait herein, in that the levies, the lists, and full proportions are all made out of his subject. And we here dispatch you, good Cornelius, and you, Voltimand, for bearing of this greeting to old Norway, giving to you no further personal power to business with the king more than the scope of these dilated articles allow. Farewell, and let your haste command your duty.
In that and all things will we show our duty.
We doubt it nothing. Heartily farewell. And now, Laertes, what's the news with you? You told us of some suit? What is't, Laertes? You cannot speak of reason to the Dane and lose your voice. What wouldst thou beg, Laertes? That shall not be my offer, not thy asking. The head is not more native to the heart, the hand more instrumental to the mouth, than is the throne of Denmark to thy father. What wouldst thou have, Laertes?
Dread my lord, your leave and favor to return again to France, from whence, though willingly I came to Denmark to show my duty in your coronation, yet now I must confess that duty done, my thoughts and wishes bend again toward France, and bow them to your gracious leave and pardon.
Have you your father's leave? What says Polonius?
He hath, my lord. I do beseech you, give him leave to go.
Take thy fair hour, Laertes, time be thine, and thy best graces spend it at thy will. But now, my cousin Hamlet and my son,
A little more than kin and less than kind.
how is it that the clouds still hang on you?
Not so, my lord. I am too much in the sun.
Good Hamlet, cast thy knightly colour off, and let thine eye look like a friend on Denmark. Do not forever with thy veiled lids seek for thy noble father in the dust. Thou know'st 'tis common, all that lives must die, passing through nature to eternity.
Ay, madam, it is common.
If it be, why seems it so particular with thee?
Seems, madam. Nay, it is. I know not seems. 'Tis not alone my inky cloak, good mother, nor customary suits of solemn black, nor windy suspiration of forced breath, no, nor the fruitful river in the eye, nor the dejected behavior of the visage, together with all forms, moods, shows of grief that can denote me truly. These indeed seem, for they are actions that a man might play, but I have that within which passeth show, these but the trappings and the suits of woe.
'Tis sweet and commendable in your nature, Hamlet, to give these mourning duties to your father, but you must know your father lost a father. That father lost his, and the survivor bound in filial obligation for some term to do obsequious sorrow. But to persevere in obstinate condolement is a course of impious stubbornness. 'Tis unmanly grief. It shows a will most incorrect to heaven, a heart unfortified, a mind impatient, an understanding simple and unschooled. For what we know must be, and is as common as any the most vulgar thing to sense, why should we in our peevish opposition take it to heart? Fie! 'Tis a fault to heaven, a fault against the dead, a fault to nature, to reason most absurd, whose common theme is death of fathers, and who still hath cried from the first course till he that died today, this must be so. We pray you, throw to earth this unprevailing woe, and think of us as of a father. For let the world take note, you are the most immediate to our throne, and with no less nobility of love than that which dearest father bears his son, do I impart towards you. For your intent in going back to school in Wittenberg, it is most retrograde to our desire, and we beseech you, bend you to remain here in the cheer and comfort of our eye, our chiefest courtier cousin, and our son.
Let not thy mother lose her prayers, Hamlet. I prithee stay with us. Go not to Wittenberg.
I shall in all my best obey you, madam.
Why, 'tis a loving and a fair reply. Be as ourself in Denmark. Madam, come. This gentle and unforced accord of Hamlet sits smiling to my heart, in grace whereof no jocund health at Denmark drinks today, but the great cannon to the clouds shall tell, and the king's rouse the heavens shall brew it again, respeaking earthly thunder. Come, away.
Good. Okay. Okay, good. We're going to hit this again next week because I think that we've talked a lot about it, and now I think that we should actually work it moment to moment, and that would be my goal for next week. Any questions or any again comments? We can open it up to everybody, Nathan, if you'd like. I don't know if Nathan's there. Nathan's not there.
You know, it's funny, Annie, you know, when we pop, oh, I'm sorry, Sharon, hi, Sharon, you were raising your hand.
Go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say, having never played Laertes, just hearing it before, you know, just the obvious things. When you never played a character, you hear things differently through the character's ear. And what I heard on this one was, I know, I was just thinking about what Laertes does later when he gives the speech to Ophelia, and he gives her all this warning, and I realized he gets permission to go away. This whole thing, this whole dressing down of Hamlet kind of happens publicly, and then Hamlet's going to stay, and I'm not going to be there to look out for her. I don't know, I just thought of that. You know, I just tracked the you know, the sort of impetus of oh, loose cannon Hamlet's going to stay back at court. You know, and then all that reason for the advice to Ophelia seems to make a little more sense.
It's why I said it is why, though, I was saying that it's so important to look at every scene, because it will come up, and some you know, response will be influenced from this scene in that next scene. I think that's the way we should be looking at the whole thing, is that
Also,
yes, he was there.
Also, too, if we look at the stage direction, Ophelia is in this scene. In the quarto, she's not, but in the folio, she is. So the Polonius family is there, and even Ophelia gets to witness what happens. You know, so
it seems
only
like
feed the next scene with the Polonius family.
yes.
Yeah.
I think it seems like because that Laertes gets a little tongue-tied in front of Claudius, because
Sure.
Claudius says, "What is it? What is it? What is it? You cannot stand in front of the Dane and and not say something. Say something. What?" And finally, he like sort of blurts it out or something. And I wonder what that's about. Is it because of what Ben was saying? Like, oh, all of a sudden, like, okay, wait a minute, what? Things are changing. The dynamic is changing here in front of me, and what I had planned on is not going. Maybe should not happen. Maybe I shouldn't go back to France. Maybe I should stay. Or no, if I stay, I'll go to war. Maybe I should go back to France. I mean, is it something like that? He's. When I was younger, of course, I always thought of Laertes as the foil to Hamlet, and he's the guy he has to do with. And isn't until recently when you start reading again, you go, oh my goodness, there's more happening here than perhaps is we've seen before, or thought of before.
I think
Like I realize Claudius is a hero. To Claudius, he's a hero.
Yeah.
He saved the kingdom. This
And
is all
he is
for
fearful. Claudius, again, I think we're so used to modernized versions of this that he's a CEO or he's something modern. But he's a king.
right.
If we could ever get in our skulls that is something that's much bigger than a CEO, and you're in front of that king who is showing just how strong he is, and you have got to ask him now, can I leave to go to France? Because he's not going to fight it, but there's nothing in that speech where he says he's going to do anything that's going to benefit Denmark by his going. He's going because he's asking for the opportunity to leave. But I think that again, what I found in so many productions of this play and other Shakespearean plays is that we're so wrapped up in the words that what we get is just a delivery of the words and not the life behind the words. So you have to say, why is Laertes saying what he's saying the way he's saying it? And that, for me, the key was recently, dread, my lord. That word dread is a big word. He's not saying good, my lord. We've seen that in Shakespeare all the time. It's dread, my lord. Your favor, and there's Polonius who basically said, it's wonderful of Claudius to just say, well, if your father approves anything your father does, I'll back, and so Polonius says, please let him go. Fine, go. It's a setup for what's about to happen in the denial of Hamlet. Why is Laertes allowed to go? Why can he just go? Hamlet has a simple request to go back to school. No, we don't want that to happen. And he's quite crafty and quite wonderful in how he expresses the need for Hamlet to stay. But it's a wonderful setup that one young man can go, time be thine. Everything the way you will, go. And now it's going to be followed up with, we don't want you to go. And so we start to see his treatment of Laertes is different than his treatment of Hamlet. And again, it's one of those questions that hovers around. Why? Why can't he go back to Wittenberg? Sometimes knowing the play is a real hindrance because we tend to tip our hand too soon. And I think what we have to keep reminding ourselves is what the audience knows, what we know, and the difference between the two. The audience doesn't know why Laertes can go and Hamlet can't go. They're not making the connection that we're saying, oh, of course, he may come and gather men and turn on death. They don't know that. They're still learning the play. And that's what keeps them excited about it. That's what keeps the play, the 3 hours of the play, worthwhile. It's when we tell everything in Act 1, we sit there and think, kill the sucker. Why don't you just get rid of him? What the hell are you waiting for? Because we're playing it that way. Michelle, you have a question? Or
Do you think that the audience understood the fact that Laertes was going to France, that France was sort of a fun destination, culture and And
I think some will, some won't. I don't think that, again, I don't think it's, I think there'd be a speech in there for him to say, I'm, I'm going because I really love the food, but he's not. He's, he's simply saying, I've been in France and I have a desire to go back to France. That's how, I think, I'm glad you raised the point, because that's how without information it is. It doesn't matter. He could have said, any country, and it would have been fine with Claudius. So France isn't the issue here. It's Laertes going. And anywhere you want to go, time be thine, he says. Anytime you want to go, do it, fine.
But Michelle, you bring up a point about France and what France represents. And that's going to come up later in the scene between Polonius and Ronaldo. Yeah. When Polonius wants to find out what his son is doing there.
That's right.
Whether he's
Even
playing
before
or
that, Randy,
gaming or whoring or whatever. What?
and it's going to come up. It's also going to come up earlier than that when he gives a lecture to Laertes about how the way French dress.
And,
You want to be careful not to overdo this or that. There's a particular behavior.
Right.
But the audience hasn't gotten there yet. So
That's right. So.
Okay. Oh, it's exhausting. But good. Anything else? Anybody? If not, yay, Nathan's back.
Sharon had a question.
Sharon.
Yeah, Sharon. I thought you were waving. That's why I didn't know it was a question.
Oh,
You're muted.
Sharon, I think your microphone isn't connected. Maybe that's what it is.
You're on mute.
All right. Anyone else? Maybe we can come back to Sharon. Or Sharon, you can always type your question into the chat box, and then we can at least discuss it here. Yeah, it's been such a rich discussion. I mean, obviously, when we break it down like this, there are so many things you hear, or I hear for the first time, or just brought out that going, wow, I didn't clock that. The number of times I've seen Hamlet or read it, the different things that Claudius is doing, and yeah, it's just such a fun conversation. Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to say, I'm getting tied up in the reading of it because I am really thinking on multiple layers. I'm like, oh, don't miss that colon, and there's a capital, and there's but what I'm catching right this minute is this line, therefore our sometime sister, now our queen, etc. I guess I haven't been paying attention, but in my mind, just like reading it, therefore our sometime sister now, took it in the sense that he was actually addressing Gertrude, but he is not addressing Gertrude. He's saying, for that reason, we have taken this person to become our wife. But
that's absolutely right.
I didn't study Claudius the way I studied.
This is why that's why I say about Claudius is that he puts stuff out there that is almost audacious. But he's got this war. He's got, Denmark's in trouble, and he's able to get away with all of it because he can be a strong leader in protecting. Look, without taking political sides, the issue we know right now that's on the table is that the situation with Iran and Trump going into Iran without the approval of Congress. And so both sides are arguing that. It becomes, whether it's an achievement that's positive is not the point. He still broke the law according to some people. So I think that what's happening here is the leader says, I don't care. The benefit outweighs the law. And the same thing with Claudius. What he's saying is incest is secondary to the war that will happen if I'm not
what we're facing
to take care of it. Okay.
Rebecca, go ahead. Yeah, please. Yeah.
I've been thinking about a comment that you made early on regarding the context and the audience hearing this, the question of them definitely seeing this as incest. And it just makes me think that, an Elizabethan audience, the whole question of whether it's incest to marry your brother's wife, your brother's widow, the legitimacy of Elizabeth as a queen absolutely depended on people believing that that was not only wrong, but even kind of cursed to marry your brother's widow. So I'd never thought about that before, but I really appreciate that that point that you made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had to know that. I mean, you know, Shakespeare's writing, and he knows the various kings and queens. There's the story of, I don't know if you know this. I won't go through it, I promise. But Mary, Queen of Scots, was married, and her lover, it was thought her lover killed her husband. And that story comes very close. And by the way, he was killed in a garden. His body was found in a garden. So so that, you know, Shakespeare was well aware of who was a king or queen at the time, all of these different stories just about England itself. And so you'll see some little moment of it, let's say. But again, I think that the incest will come up now in Hamlet's speech again. You know, and again, that may not be for a modern audience a big thing. But you don't cut it out, because you're not doing, the story is not about us. It's about Denmark, 12th century Denmark and Norway. That's basically where the source material is. And that's also the only time when Denmark had power over England. That's why Claudius can say to England, "Do it, England," because he's got this. So you can start to trace these plays to a possible period that you would set it in. Okay, I'll shut up, because I know Nathan will say you can fill it, but move on, Nathan, go.
And we're all enjoying how you fill it, Annie. Were there any other questions? I thought I saw another hand. Michelle, yes.
There are Laertes, by the way, that had a Laertes ring to it. We're all enjoying.
For me, therefore our sometime sister, now our queen, is a very, very important line, because it's sort of like he's saying, that was then, this is now, and this is the way it's going to be. I mean, the fact that he draws that distinction, and that to me said a lot about, Claudius and how he governs.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, great point. Great point.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Sharon. Wonderful.
I'll be darned. Okay, so it's I think it was the smooth DJ sound of Lee's voice this time. It was supremely honeyed. So for me, the taking into consideration the politician stance, that Claudius uses reason and not emotion or empathy, and Hamlet's dressing down is in public. To me, him talking about what he's wearing, right, is like, whoa, 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 we're not bringing up the dead king. We're not bringing up the dead king. This has nothing to do with the funeral. It's all about pomp. It's all about happy, happy, happy. And then the dressing down, somebody I believe had said that it's almost, you're not allowed to feel what you're feeling, and it's almost too feminine. So Claudius using the reason, and then there was something in your reading, Lee, there was a chuckle in there, and I was like, oh man, that hurts, dude, come on, right? So that the playing the mommy card wasn't really playing the mommy card. It's like, do what your mother is telling you to do right now. Please, this is what I'm saying, Remy. And right, and then and Hamlet then realizing, yes, I am in public. You're right. We shouldn't be doing this now. I'll shut up.
Every part of it. I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Can you backtrack and help me understand a little bit more of it, what you're saying?
So the Gertrude saying, I don't see why it's a big deal. Why are you still in black? We're not mourning. Why are you still mourning?
Right.
It's no big deal. Why is it such a big deal with you? I don't understand why it's not a big deal with you, is my problem, Mom. I am playing the part of the dutiful son, which for some reason in my head jumped forward to the closet scene. Then, like he's telling her how she should be behaving.
Yes.
And she's not, which is right back to the, look at this picture of this king, and now look at the twit you married. That it's just what I heard this time. And then a sudden, oh, that's lovely, Hamlet, that you feel that way about your dad, but it's nature and you should knock it the fuck off now. Okay.
Wait, he's dragging it into the dirt a little bit, and so that's what I'm having a problem with.
Yeah.
You're knocking the royalty right out of it by making these people gutter snipes. If to me is what I'm hearing the way you're describing it, because this is two people have just taken over the kingship. One man was just taken over the kingship,
Right.
and they're talking. They have a public in front of them, so that it's not just mom and dad. It's not just mommy talking to.
No. Right. No. And because to me, it's a honeyed, very political way to do it. That's just what I heard. So what I'm hearing is Claudius using reason as opposed to emotion.
Right.
To explain why he should not be mourning.
Right.
Right. And so the move for the mom can be the mom card. But to me, this time, I heard it more politically. So I will use the mom card as, please, honey, I'm your mother. Please don't do this in public.
Right.
And Hamlet realizing, you're right, I should not be doing this in public.
That's what I was saying about Larry.
Oh, yeah, I will.
Let me just make it clear, is that the first part of it, cast thy knightly color off and look like a friend on Denmark. This is the queen. She doesn't say, dear son. She says, good Hamlet. What's the news with thee, Laertes? She's using his first name. She's not saying, dear son, don't behave that. She's saying, cast thy knightly, and I'm a queen. And when I speak, I have as much authority as the man who's standing next to me with a crown on his head. Good Hamlet, cast thy knightly color off, and let thine eye look like a friend on Denmark. As opposed to, I'm your mom. I mean, there's the element that I'm missing in it, and I think is there, is this is public, and it's a public embarrassment. And it's not, dear son, do this. It will, I agree with you, and I think Larry brought it up too. It gets to do this for me. That's the change. Now she's not quite the woman who's standing in front of the public defending the man that she made king when her son should have been king. It's complex. I mean, both of these people, Claudius and Gertrude, have an incredible load to carry. And I think that you have to allow all those layers of what they're carrying in public to take place. They end up tipping their hand. They end up being more guilty by trying to cover it up than they would be if they were just honest and said, Hamlet, you're making me feel bad, or Hamlet, I don't be so rude. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying, is that it's two different approaches because it's two different circumstances that she's finding herself in. I believe the same thing is about Claudius is the same thing. Yeah.
Let's look at the circumstance with which Gertrude enters the scene. She intervenes. Claudius and Hamlet have had a tiff, an exchange, and she comes in to intervene in that moment, right? Don't you think that's what's going on?
That's what I said about, watch where they come in. Hamlet is rude. Gertrude comes in. Hamlet is rude to her. Claudius comes in. It's an incredible defense mechanism that the both of them have. They defend each other because Hamlet is the one who's causing trouble. And he's the only one in that court who is a reference to the king. The black, somebody said it earlier, the black that he's wearing is a perpetual remembrance that the king, the old king,
recently died.
Yes. And so Both of them are trying to make it something else. It's natural for somebody to die, she says. And he says, his father lost a father, that father lost his. This is life. Get used to life. Well, has anybody lost their parents? How did you feel 1 month after your dad died, or your mother died, or your cat died, for Christ's sake? That's a short time for anything you love to pass by, and now we're just going to rejoice. So that's what I think, that's what I'm saying, is the circumstances are fraught and forcing these people to behave a particular way. Nathan, you're shaking your head.
No, we got a couple more questions. I just wish you could bring more passion to this, Annie. Sometimes I just wonder if people are entertained.
Right. Now, Michaela.
Michaela, yes. You just got to unmute, I think.
There we go.
There you go.
Hi, thank you so much for all this. This has been fabulous. My big thing that I kind of really realized is how Hamlet, I just see him kind of just like watching this whole show. He watches how this Claudius guy is reacting to all of this, how he treats Laertes, and then his mother. And I think he's like, it's just continuing. I think it goes throughout the whole place, putting pieces together of this ain't right. This is just, and I think that also is, I think, what makes him want to stay. And also, I love the fact of learning that Ophelia's in this scene watching. He sees his sister, he sees this situation, and he wants to control it, you know, in some way. And now, you know, he's realizing that he's got to, like, his father is dead, so maybe he needs to really do this for his dad. And I think it's like a little bit throughout the whole play, he's like going, this is not right. This is not right. And, you know, like you said, he witnesses seeing his mother act falsely now, it seems, you know, so just all those little things. The breaking down of it really made me think about how Hamlet is just like watching all of this going, yeah, I didn't think this was cool. Let me talk to my ghost dad about it. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so those are my thoughts that I had. So
Great.
thanks for
Thank
your
you very
work.
much, Michaela. Thank you. Yeah, Michelle.
Yeah, for me, the big revelation was that in this reading, Gertrude has agency. She's not a dumb trophy wife that is just,
Right.
you know, part of the spoils of becoming king. She is a partner with Claudius. How much she knows, that can be, you know, something to be debated, but it is very clear that they are acting as a team. She is a jointress in that relationship.
There's no Claudius without Gertrude. That's how powerful she is. There's no Claudius without Gertrude. That's what's so disappointing to Hamlet too, that she could do this. She is part of this. It's not, I mean, we make Claudius a villain, but the problem becomes that without Gertrude, Claudius would not be king at all. And so, yes, she has agency. She has power. And she's a queen. You know, I think we tend to diminish that sometimes when we think about her, because she's weak. You know, we hear frailty, thy name is woman. She's weak. She's this. She fell in love with him quickly, and because she couldn't stand somebody not taking care of all of that stuff. And then what happens is we pull the rug out from her being queen. She made this happen.
Yes.
That's why, if she's just this little weakling, then Hamlet is a pain in the ass. He should get over it and move on. But he's not. She is crushing to him, because a queen doesn't act that way. And not just a mother, a queen, and a queen that was known to be the most virtuous woman. You know, people looked up to Gertrude. Her husband was loving. No need, no reason in the world for her not to have accepted Hamlet for the king. So the disappointment in, it's such a weak word, I'm so sorry, but the disappointment of Hamlet towards Gertrude is profound. It's just hard, it's awful. So.
Yeah, no, well, thank you, Annie. I think that's, I mean, there's just so much more we could discuss, and I've loved the discussion so far today. That people will bring up different points, and even if we don't agree on interpretation or maybe the meaning of certain things, it leads to such great discussion of, well, let's consider this point, or let's bring in this idea, and it's just wonderful that there's still such an open flow of conversation here. So I want to thank everybody for your time and efforts today. Yes, Annie. Yes, go ahead.
Listen, when I'm harsh, it's because I know you and we've worked together. So if it's sounding harsh or whatever, and I was raised by, the group theater people, the Phoebe Browns and the Stella Adlers of the world, who are direct. They felt that the quickest way to get something done was to be direct. And so I will be direct. It doesn't mean that I don't respect you or you don't know and I know any of that. But I am impassioned about this work. I feel theater can change lives and change this shithole that we're in right now. I think theater has that power to do that. And I'm seeing us fritter away our power. So yes, I do get emotional about great plays, works of art. So if I'm harsh, excuse me, and I'll try not to be so harsh next time. But if you want me to be kind and loving, I can do that too. I'm an actress. Okay, thank you, Nathan. Sorry.
You're very welcome. No, it's a great reminder, and I think one of the things that certainly I admire most about you is how passionate you are about this material and about theater. So I thank you for bringing all of that here. So as Annie mentioned, thank you to those who might not have been on camera this week, but for observing and listening in. Really appreciate it. And if any of you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Annie or me. We can make sure we get all those questions directed to the right people, and maybe we even can bring up some of those points next week. So with that, I think we're kind of at a close for this week. This has been a wonderful full session. We'll pick it up again with this section of the scene next week. Have a great few days off, and we'll see everybody back here in the rehearsal room.
Great to see old friends.
Yeah, indeed. Great to see you all.
Thank you.